Our second day in Boston comprised mainly of the Freedom Trail. The Freedom Trail is a 2.5-mile long path through Boston that passes by 16 historical locations.
We stopped by the Granary burying ground, which is where patriots such as Paul Revere, John Hancock, and Samuel Adams are buried. Victims of the Boston Massacre are also buried here. There are over 5,000 bodies buried here, but only an estimated 2,300 tombstones. This is because many of the graves have multiple bodies buried under one headstone, which was common in most old burial grounds to save money and space. We went to another cemetery, the King's Chapel Burial Ground. This gravestone inspired Nathaniel Hawthorne to write the Scarlet Letter.
This spot is where the first public school in America was. Puritan settlers built it in 1635. Ben Franklin, Sam Adams, and John Hancock attended the school. The old Corner Bookstore was first an apothecary, then became a publishing company. Many New England-based authors, such as Harriet Beecher Stowe, Louisa May Alcott, and Nathaniel Hawthorne, had their manuscripts published here by the Ticknor and Fields Company. The Boston Massacre occurred behind the old State House. The Declaration of Independence was also read here for the first time on July 18, 1776.
We made our way to the North End District to visit the Paul Revere house. Photography and videography aren't allowed in the house, unfortunately. Paul Revere once lived in this home, which is actually the oldest home in Boston. It was built in 1680. Paul Revere was employed by the Boston Committee of Correspondence as an express rider to carry news as far away as Philadelphia. On the evening of April 18, 1775, Paul Revere was summoned by Dr. Joseph Warren and given the task of riding to Lexington, Massachusetts, with the news that British troops were about to march northwest of Boston. Revere contacted a friend and instructed him to show 2 lanterns in the tower of the Old North Church in case Revere was unable to leave town. The two lanterns meant that the British troops planned to row by sea across the Charles River to Cambridge, rather than march by land out Boston Neck. Came across this flagship Converse store. I worked at Converse, my husband worked at Converse, and my brother worked at Converse. So we are definitely stopping here.
Next, we visited the USS Constitution, which is the oldest commissioned warship in the world. It first launched in 1797. The greatest glory for the USS Constitution was during the War of 1812. Constitution's crew defeated 4 British frigates during 3 separate engagements. She earned the nickname Old Ironsides because the cannon fire from enemy ships seemed as if they couldn't penetrate her strong oak hull.
You would have struggled on this ship?
I think I'm just short enough.
So I don't have to duck. Our final stop was the Bunker Hill Monument, which commemorates the first major battle of the Revolutionary War. You can usually climb to the top of the monument, but it was closed due to COVID. It was here that the British defeated the colonists in June 1775. Despite their loss, the inexperienced colonial forces inflicted significant casualties against the British, providing a confidence boost for the colonial forces during the siege of Boston. We shift gears a bit in our next video, which will be about all things Fenway Park.